excellent session. I think you'll all agree there from both of our speakers. For many of you who've been coming to the Positive Farmers for a number of years, you'll know that you often get to pick up new ideas, or you hear things that are not often maybe commonplace or the next thing. What you're hearing here today is about your own next level development in relation to how you are with yourself, and I suppose how you develop with other people from that point on. So at this stage, what I'm going to do is open the floor to questions. We have, I think, about 30 minutes or so, 20, 30 minutes. What I'd also like to do, I know there are some people who have been involved with both Holly and Nollaig, that if you did want to share some of your own experiences around some of what you've done with them, that would be great as well. But maybe just to start off, what I want to just talk about a little bit is around this piece of stress, because we're coming into the calving season, and you mentioned some of the statistics, Holly, around stress being one of the biggest killers. And I think if even we asked everybody here in the audience how many people get sick at calving time, or how many people come in too late to put their kids to bed, or how many people just end up being absolutely silent over meal times, we'll see there's probably a lot more stress going on in the room than we might believe. But just on that, you both mentioned around, I suppose, how you take that stress, whether it's through time management or task prioritization, maybe some of the steps people could take in the lead up to calving to prepare for that. So I just ask each of you maybe to comment on that.
I think for me, one of the critical things about stress is finding yourself calving is finding yourself in the middle of calving and somehow being surprised by that, because that doesn't make sense. That means you're being very reactive and not proactive. And when we look at any aspect of leadership or management, it is about planning, it's about being engaged and proactive in your approach. Yesterday, I can't remember who said it, but somebody was talking about Pat Dillon talked about being proactive and planning and thinking. And it's really, really important, because I specialise in stress management and resilience as well, and one of the key things I would look at would be time and planning and anticipating the stress periods. Farming is extremely predictable on a yearly basis. It's unpredictable on a daily basis because different things happen, but we know a huge amount about the farming year, and you should be proactively engaging with that knowledge to remove as much stress from the system as possible. You cannot eliminate stress. We need an element of stress for all the reasons that Holly described, but it is critical that it is eustress, which is the positive stress, that is effortless, which is a great expression, and it's not distress. And when we don't plan and we're not proactive in that, we find ourselves distressed, whether that's because you don't have the employee in place or you don't have the right mindset, you're not geared for that stress period.
Yeah, absolutely. And these things, as I say, follow on for each other. So planning is absolutely critical, and I support everything that Nollaig says. How do you stay focused on that planning? Hopefully I've just shared very briefly with you how you can do that. I'd probably just add that in terms of the meditation and the participants that have done this program, many of them have done this with just 10 minutes a day. And it's really easy for us to say, well, I haven't got that 10 minutes. But obviously, the more focused you are through the day, you are actually regaining that time. So in terms of preparing for calving season, I would say get to the website, watch this set of videos. It'll also give you, through that, some more meditations and a practical tool you can do to hopefully give you a little less stress through calving.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have a question over here. Paddy.
Thanks. So Paddy Kelly Chagas, just like to commend both speakers on two excellent presentations, and I've got a comment and a question. My comment would be that I actually took part in Holly's Focus Farmers program last year, did the mindfulness course, and just my comment would be it was actually something that I had tried before. I had maybe read a business article or something about the benefits of mindfulness, tried it, decided it wasn't for me, actually came across Holly's Nuffield afterwards, which, much like her presentation there, kind of explained that this is just science. This is not abstract stuff, this is science. And it was definitely, the program was one of the best things that I did myself last year. Found all the benefits that Holly described there. And I'd maybe just ask, my question would be, maybe Nollaig could comment from a business world, does she come across it much? How common is it, and what benefits she sees it would have to farming?
The mindfulness piece, is it, Paddy? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we look at interventions all the time. The ability to perform and to be high performance, it's competitive edge, the ability to perform at the expression of flow, getting into flow and performing at optimum capacity is hugely financially rewarding to any sector, to any business. So the reason we see it in all those, if you look at the blue chip companies that Holly put up, it's because those guys don't invest in anything. They invest in something that gives return on investment, and they invest something that gives money to their shareholders. So if those guys are doing it, you should be doing it too. There's brilliant, and that's my challenge. Look at the other sectors. Don't be so self-involved that you think you're the only people who've had the problems. Any of the issues that you come across before, we saw the caveman. We are still fundamentally people dealing with the same issues, no matter what your task is. I work across all sectors, whether, I do a lot of work in the Middle East. They're producing oil, you're producing milk. I still come across the same issues. I still talk about the same concept of stress management and resilience and the benefit of being able to manage yourself, having self-awareness, having self-discipline, and engaging presenteeism, being present. The UK challenged maybe 2 years ago, they had a directive on health psychology saying, look, our biggest cost to the economy is not absenteeism, it's presenteeism, which is how many people are in the workplace but not actually present. And mindfulness is that whole space around being present, engaging, and performing.
Excellent, thank you. Okay.
Caroline Spencer from Somerset. Nollaig, as an employer, what 2 or 3 questions should I ask a future employee at an interview? And if I was an employee, what 2 or 3 questions should I ask my potential employer at an interview?
Okay, firstly, interviewing is the least effective method of selection. Situational interviewing is the most effective method of selection. So when we think of the traditional interview, we think of this scenario. You're interviewing me at the moment. Caroline's just asked me a question. She's interviewing me about my knowledge. And that is not representative, because people pay people like me to help them to perform at interviews, to help me to tell you what you want to hear. So you need to know critically, Caroline, what is it that your business needs so that you can ask the right questions. What is it that you need at any one time? It's also about, really critically is that gut feeling. So the interview is just an addition. If you went to any of those blue chip companies, interviewing is the last part of the process. There's a huge number of hurdles to go through. So you should know what it is that you value. Do you know what you value? Do you know what you want? Do you know what you believe is the right employee for your business, which is going to be completely different to the farm next door? So first of all, understand what it is that you want from your employees. You cannot do that if you don't know your business. Secondly, give them the opportunity to perform at optimum. Remove the stress from that scenario. So if you want somebody who's good with dealing with cows, bring them out and show them some cows. Let them, shadow them when they do milking session for you. If you want somebody who's good at grass measuring and they say they're good at grass measuring, I could put my hand up and say I'm good at grass measuring. I haven't a flipping clue how to measure grass, but I can put it on my CV. And you won't know that until I'm in your business not measuring your grass. So it's about saying, what do you need? How do you identify that? And then having those conversations and giving people, removing that stress from the system, so you give people the best opportunity for you to find out what they're like. And I would say to every single person in this room, you are experts in your own business. Do not deny the gut instinct. Have the ability to say, I may be wrong, and challenge it, but fundamentally, nearly every person in this room will know within whether the person is going to suit their system or not, and you shouldn't be afraid of that. And you certainly shouldn't be having a conversation with somebody like me a year or two later saying, I was never going to work anyway. Okay.
Thanks, Nollaig. Okay.
Chris Barnes, Farm in Somerset, UK. First of all, an observation. I do meditation as part of a yoga class, and the following day is the best day of the week. Physically and mentally, I'm at my sharpest. 2 questions. Firstly, I'm a procrastinator. I'm proud, I wear the badge with pride. I'd rather not be one though. So how could I, improve that situation? And secondly, I have an employee who I feel would benefit greatly from doing mindfulness, but I would, it would dragging a horse to water basically, but not getting him to engage. How could I get him to engage?
Okay, the first thing with terms of procrastination, I share your pain. There's a reason why I got involved and interested in this. Unfortunately, it's the one thing that I actually haven't really discovered in terms of self-discipline. The one thing I do know is that self-discipline snowballs. So the more you do, the more it gets done. And unfortunately, sometimes it is just about dragging our ass to do it. I would add, though, going back to the planning, making stuff as clear as possible for yourself. I know that Nollaig operates in terms of a calendar and putting in the blocks of the big things that you've got to do and then putting the blocks of little things that always need to be done. Having that as a visual reference can really help. And those are sort of tools that you can add to this. And then on top of that, as I say, the meditation, you mentioned the next day, you feel great. I also add to that, so the participants on the course, and there's a little bit in your brochure today in terms of the paper that I wrote. Obviously, some of the participants were more keen or committed than others, and what we found is those that have done it every day have shown more progress than those that maybe only did it 2 or 3 times a week. So that tells you something. Sorry, what was the employees. All I can say to that is go, and you've got to be committed to it yourself. None of those companies that I listed up there put on a mindfulness course for their employees without the chief exec being on board, without them have experienced themselves. So it starts with you to have a go. And the video series, it's very scientific, explains a lot of the neuroscience and the psychology behind this. It actually doesn't mention meditation until episode 9. So perhaps go have a look at that yourself, and then that's something you could use to introduce to your employees.
And maybe just on that, as well as maybe employees, family. We're dealing with a lot of family businesses here. How do you involve them in that? And even the same theme to Nollaig as well. How do you be an employer of choice when it becomes family that are working with you every day? So maybe just...
Yeah, so again, the family, the video series, it's kind of designed that people can sit down. You don't even have to send your employee off to, you can, send them off to watch it themselves, or sit down and watch it together, because it's great then to have a bit of a discussion around it. Same with the family, they can have a discussion around the ideas.
Excellent.
Can I answer it? Yeah, okay, I just answer both of those. Procrastination is, highly effective people do the things that other people don't like doing. They do the big ugly things, and it is just about discipline. And what's interesting about the big ugly things is they're never as big and ugly as you thought they were. It's up here that makes them big and ugly. When we sit down and we create a plan to deal with the big ugly things, they're far less scary. They're far less worth putting off and being stressed about. And we believe we're buying ourselves time by putting them off, but we're not. We're stressing ourselves out even more. And it's just discipline. It's having the discipline to catch yourself, but most importantly, catch yourself when you do it well. You trick yourself. If you want to create a habit, you trick yourself into believing it's worthwhile. And then Holly referred to it. Then actually doing the thing that you were reluctant to do in the first place in itself becomes intrinsically motivating, because you feel the satisfaction of having completed something you didn't want to do. So that's really, really important to kickstart it. What is it that you love about farming? And you'll do that when you've done the ugly job. So I hate paperwork. I love measuring grass. I won't measure the grass till I have an hour of my paperwork done. Those little quick wins, very simple. Don't go for the quick wins in terms of doing the quick and easy jobs first and avoiding the big jobs. Go for the big job first. Go for, as Mike Murphy would say, or the New Zealand system would say, go for those €1,000 jobs, those £1,000 jobs. And when you say that your employee won't buy into it, well, I would suggest that is absolutely your fault. You are not selling the right concept. So to one person, they'll go, oh God, she's a psychologist, I don't want to know anything about her. I can tell you I very rarely walk into a room and say I'm a psychologist, because I want people to stay in the room, okay? And that's the thing about, if you want people to, mindfulness is, I would suggest mindfulness isn't new. It's meditation, it's the things, it's something that you've done before. If you know your staff, you know what motivates them and lights them up and makes them tick. Mike McGann said yesterday, he was sitting over there and he said, that John Maloney lit up when he talked about planning. If you know what lights somebody up, you can use that to engage. So you might say, you're mad into rugby, the All Blacks do this, or your team does this and they do this well, and that's how you sell it to them. So it's really just finding that sweet spot, that eye lighter up, that makes somebody engage, and that's how you bring somebody into, and that's whether it's your family member, you know, or your employee, or your friends, or whatever it is. Create a reason for them to engage, sell the right product. And that's where the dairy industry is at now. Sell yourselves as a superb product.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Philip O'Leary. I'm actually an officer in the Defence Forces. So I'd like to compliment the board, and what you're saying is not only like I could bring it to the Defence Forces and we could learn a lot from what you're saying as well. So I'd like to compliment what's being said here today. But my question is, I'd like you to comment on, I suppose, the unique situation that a lot of Irish dairy farms have, that the family unit or the family itself gives resilience to our farms, i.e. we have a casual workforce there that can be tapped into during when we're covering silage or when the calving begins. But is that a problem? Is that a problem that we have that there and the business gets used to being able to tap into that workforce that's always there? So just like you to comment on that. And then secondly, kind of related to the same topic, the fact that a lot of Irish dairy farms, you will see father-son partnerships or father-daughter partnerships. And how do you develop that relationship from the father being the person who has trained the son, has raised the son as his son, to then them being partners, and vice versa? If you have brothers working together, how would you advise that relationship? Does it change? Or does it just, and who is involved in that change? Or is it just a development from the father-son relationship as the son grew up? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to tackle that beast? Just
go
asking
first.
Holly, does she want to tackle that beast, or will I? Okay, family. I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? We talk about, family is a problem in dairy. Family is one of the most marvellous selling points about dairy. It's that lifestyle, it's the opportunity. And we listened to the Collins speaking yesterday and showing a picture of a family unit and saying this is why we farm. So family is really an advantage. It only becomes that problem when we take advantage of that advantage. We abuse that advantage. When we hold different standards to our family than we do to our employees. So you'd often find, oh God, you know, my father, he treats the employee better than me. Or I treat, you know, I'm disrespectful to my father. I cut corners. I do those things. So that is behavior only exists because it's allowed to. You abuse that relationship because that hasn't been stopped. So you have to reflect on yourself and say, am I taking advantage of somebody here? We also have to challenge assumptions. You see your dad or your parents coming up the yard and you think, oh God, I'm going to get more work to do. Maybe that person just wants to go up the yard for a walk. You know, it's about challenging yourself and your assumptions about what's actually happening. And I think let's be very strict about how we engage and holding your family as accountable as you hold your employees, but equally rewarding your family as much as you reward your employees. And that's really, really important. And the second one about succession, and we had a great talk yesterday from Shan Bushell, who does, I suppose, the more formal concept of it. But again, we have this interesting one where there is an assumption that the father or the parents are at fault for not allowing their children to engage in the farm. And I think that deflects blame away from the son and daughter coming into the farm. You're walking into somebody's kingdom. You're asking them to change their behavior. You have to be very subtle. You have to be very conscientious that you are about to topple the king. And you have to be, this is Machiavelli at his best. Read the book, The Prince. He knew about takeovers and land acquisition and mergers. This is about understanding that somebody is losing and somebody is gaining. And if I think you're losing, if I think I'm losing, I will dig my heels in for dear life, which is exactly what came across yesterday in succession planning. So it is about understanding, I want to take over the farm. I am potentially, you know, people die within 10 years of retirement, a huge statistic, because they lose focus and involvement. And if I, as a farmer, believe I'm going to lose my meaning in life and my position and my power and my authority because somebody's coming in to overthrow me, well, my God, I'm going to hang on as long as I can. But if you come in here not going, and I learned pow, I learned this in college, and I learned this, and I was in New Zealand and in Missouri, and we did 75 million cows, and we're going to change everything here. By saying to somebody, by walking in the gate and saying, we're going to change everything here, you have said to that person, as a saber-toothed tiger did in that picture, you are wrong and I am right. And you cannot expect any relationship to come well out of that. So it is about sensitivity, is that key last slide on my grassroots, emotional intelligence. Appreciate that you're going to hurt somebody with what you're doing. and step back and engage with it and plan it. Sorry, I could go,
Excellent.
that's a high horse again, sorry.
Excellent. Okay, I think Mike, you were first, yeah?
A comment and a question. The comment will say that I'm a paid-up rugby nut of the Red Army, will say. The first 5 minutes against Racing on Sunday, you know immediately if Munster are up for it. I mean, about a month ago they played Leinster, and I mean Munster just weren't up for it, we'll say. And I mean Leinster absolutely whacked them in the first 10 or 15 minutes. And it's up for it. Nollaig would describe it as being in flow, and we'll say that over the autumn we'll say that I tried Holly's programme, and it wasn't the best disciple. We'll say that they didn't do it every day, etc. But every single time I did it, I always felt much better. Strangely, actually more relaxed, but hugely more productive, actually in flow. And we'll say that I always got a lot more done that day. And coming from somebody who probably was a shade sceptical about the benefits, we'll say, in the past, we'll say that I'd suggest to anybody who's sceptical, why not try it for a few days? And we'll say that I think you might be very, very surprised. And the question is actually, Nollaig had said we were going to see the mean Heffernan today. I think we actually saw the passionate Nollaig. And I agree with you, because you know, if you actually run yourself down, I can't do this, I'm a bad employer, or bad employees, or whatever. I actually think language is important. You know, I think we can actually boost ourselves with the right language. We'll reinforce ourselves. But I think so many people actually tear themselves down. Would you comment on that sort of area?
Yeah, we do. I mean, Ireland, we'll again accuse ourselves. We're always accusing ourselves, aren't we? We'd accuse ourselves of being a nation of knockers, and I see it all the time. I do the calendar, and it's just such a simple concept. You get out the year, it's a picture, it's a pictorial representation of time, a calendar, a yearly planner, and we put it on the table, and it's amazing how abusive in fun comments to the person who say, God, you have a lot of time off. Look at that. She mustn't do any work. Now, that's a flippant comment, but to the person who has a strong work ethic, which is every farmer, that's hurtful. That's mean, that's unfair. So we're actually really abusive to each other, and you're really not representing the industry well. So it is about being around positive people. It is about saying, hold on, that is unfair. It is about having the pride in saying, I own 200 cows. I'm not going to go about, because there's something about that about, and language is very important. Research from UCLA says that the content is as little as 7%, and that body language intent make up the other 93%. Well, if content is as little as 7%, we need to be phenomenally clear and accurate in how we use that content, and watching our language and thinking about how we engage with people. And punishment isn't necessarily about getting out the whip and physically abusing somebody. It is the smart comments. It is the little comments. It is saying, sure, you don't do any work. Sure, that's not the way it is. Sure, that fellow would be out the gate at 5 o'clock. You wouldn't see him for love nor money. If that's the contract, they're entitled to do that. So we need to be very clear about holding each other accountable on our language, because to us it's a flippant comment, to the next person that is a source of stress, that is hurtful. And we need to be very aware of surrounding ourselves with positive people. And at the moment, I'm going to accuse this audience of being 66% positive and they're negative about the people aspect. Let's filter that over. Let's that positive action in terms of where you've been with grass and where you've come to, where you've been with animal health, with genetics, with all of those things that we've heard about. Take that positive attitude and don't be afraid to say, I am a good employer and I want to be a good employer and I strive to be a good employer. And engage in that and believe it, because when we hear it, that's a feedback loop. When I say something about myself, I start believing it. All of positive psychology says if you wake up every day and say, I am a fantastic person, I am a fantastic person, repetition, I am a fantastic person, you feel better when you go out that day. You have convinced yourself of something because you have heard yourself say it. So there's about priming. Hats off every day of the week to whoever came up with the word positive farmers. You are primed to come in the door feeling better about yourselves. It is genius, the concept of positive farmers. So believe in yourselves and decide that you are good employers and make yourself good employers. Surround yourself with positive people and stop being, stop being what everybody else sees you as whinging farmers, and actually say, come on, let's get on with it. Let's be proactive farmers and not whinging farmers.
Thank you, Nollaig. And thank you, Mike, for your comment, because I wonder if 20 or 30 years ago people said the same thing about grass measuring as well.
15 years ago, I suspect. Yeah.
question for Holly as to how you quantified your measurements and then how you worked out the percentage improvements.
Yeah, sure. So there's a guy I worked with, he's a Dubliner actually, Willie Horton. He's a psychologist and leadership coach. If you sign up to the video series, he's the one presenting the information. He's developed what he calls a mindfulness measurement index. So he's developed it over 20 years. If I called it a personality statement, he'd shoot me. A personality profile, he'd shoot me. But it's a snapshot in time of the state of your psychological state. It's 100 questions, statements that you score. And we got the participants to score those at the beginning of the 8 weeks and then at the end. So we basically had baseline data that we then compared after they'd done the programme.
Okay, might just take one more question.
My question is for Holly. I'm Maria Blackwell from County Limerick. Just Holly, as you mentioned, mindfulness is used as a mechanism to change your mindset and to avoid negative thoughts. But I was just wondering, would a more proactive approach to dealing with these negative thoughts and these issues not be more beneficial for farmers, as perhaps dealing with the issues and the problems that are arising would then in turn change their mindset?
Sorry, just to clarify that, would a more proactive approach be better? So you mean actually dealing with the problems and the issues?
Yeah, so if there are problems and issues arising, let's say in particular around calving time for stress, that if there are issues arising for farmers, that if there is an issue, will dealing with that issue not in turn then change the mindset of that individual?
Yeah, some and some, I would say. I mean, to start with, change has got to come from you to begin with. And as I mentioned, a lot of these things that we get stressed about, they actually haven't happened. There's something we think might happen. And that's just pointless. It's pointless worry. It takes up time in our day. It takes our focus away on the things we should and could be doing. To be able to have the discipline to do that, the practical application of meditation allows you to do that. That then allows you to focus on the things that, yes, you can change and you can do something about. So I'm not saying, just ignore it all. If there's a problem, absolutely, you go and deal with it. And then it doesn't become a worry. It's something that you've noticed, it's something that you care about, you've changed it. But if it's something that you can't change, as I say, for the weather, you are just wasting your time worrying about it, absolutely wasting your time.
Can I just make a quick comment? Something isn't a problem until you repeat it, so it's an issue when it happens first. It's a problem if you start repeating it. So if you're in the middle of spring and something goes wrong, deal with it, but learn from that dealing with it so that it doesn't happen again. And that's the critical thing. And then you feel good about yourself, you've counteracted it, and you've removed stress from the system.
Okay, thank you very much to you both. I think on that we will close up this session. I'd just like to say thank you very much to Nollaig and Holly. I think it was absolutely excellent and really quite a vibrant discussion and something very new to many people here. So I'd hope that everybody got at least one thing that they can take home from this today. I suppose because we said this was focusing on yourself, I hope that focus will continue even with the stress or the busyness of the calving season. And enable you to become better bus drivers of your own bus or your own business going forward. So on that, thank you very much and the very best of luck.
Very inspirational stuff. Food for thought. So you have the thought, and now we're going to give you the food to work the two together. Okay. So the people that are